Once upon a time, in a bright little village, there was a beautiful young girl named Akou. Akou was 20 years old. She had a large family because her father had 2 wives. When Akou's mother passed away, her father decided that Akou should live with her stepmother, Madame Alise, in a neighbouring village. Madame Alise's house was in a village where the trees danced and the sun always seemed to smile. Akou felt a bit scared at the idea of moving to a new place, but she was also excited to make new friends and discover new places. Her father was not often present because he had to take care of the large farm he owned. But every month he would come to visit Akou and bring her lovely gifts, like juicy fruits, delicious foods, and sometimes shiny coins that made Akou happy as she filled her pockets. Akou loved her new home. It was different from the one she lived in before, but Madame Alise made it cozy. Akou had a small room with a window through which she could see the moon at night. Madame Alise would tell her, "This is your new home, Akou. We will have good times here." And so Akou began her new life in the village, hoping to make her father proud and find happiness in her new home with Madame Alise. On sunny mornings, Akou would jump out of bed, excited for the day ahead. She and Madame Alise would go to the market together. Madame Alise had a small shop where she sold beautiful fabrics, some as colourful as rainbows and others sparkling like stars in the night sky. Akou loved the colours and the softness of the fabrics. By helping Madame Alise at the shop, Akou learned to fold the fabrics carefully and greet the customers with a big, sunny smile. People from all over came to buy Madame Alise's beautiful fabrics. Akou was happy to see all the friendly faces. But there was one man, Azuka, who often came to the shop. He was not like the other customers. Azuka was tall and always wore a bright smile, but Akou felt something strange about his visits. He did not come just to buy fabrics. He seemed to have other intentions. One day, Alice was asked by Madame Akou, "Does he come here so often?" "Oh, he's just a regular customer," Alice replied with a smile, but her eyes were looking elsewhere. In the evenings after closing the shop, Alice would often say to Akou, "Go home, my dear. I'll join you soon." Akou found this strange but didn't ask questions. At first, she would go home alone, occasionally glancing back, wondering what Alice was up to. This became a routine, and Akou grew increasingly curious. One cool evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky orange and pink, Madame Alise closed her fabric shop a bit earlier than usual. She whispered, "Akou, dear, go home. I'll join you soon." Akou nodded, but her curious heart was filled with questions. She had seen Azuka loitering around the shop earlier. "Why doesn't Madame Alise come home with me?" she wondered. As Akou began to walk down the dusty path towards home, her small feet stopped. She turned back and discreetly returned, hiding behind a large basket near the shop. She peeked, her eyes wide and attentive. There, under the soft glow of the market lanterns, she saw Madame Alise and Azuka talking. They weren't just chatting like at the shop. They stood close and Azuka was gently holding Madame Alice's hand. Akou's eyes widened even more as she watched them leave together into the quiet evening shadows, feeling a mix of surprise and confusion. She hurried home, her mind buzzing like a busy bee. What should I do? She thought. She knew secrets were delicate, and this one seemed important. Lying in bed that night, staring at the moon through the window, Akou decided to keep what she had seen to herself. She didn't want to upset Madame Alise or her father. Whenever her father visited, Akou wanted to tell him but was too afraid of what might happen. Maybe it's just an adult matter, she concluded, trying to calm the storm of thoughts. With that, Akou buried the secret deep in her heart, hoping the days to come would bring clarity. Sunny days at the shop and her games under the sun would dispel the whispering shadows of the evening. One sunny afternoon, while the shop was closed for a village festival, Akou was playing with colourful beads in the living room when she heard a light knock on the door. It was Azuka. His presence wasn't unusual at the market, but at her home, it felt different. Akou watched Madame Alise greet Azuka with warm and subdued excitement. "Play here, Akou. I need to talk to Azuka about something important," said Madame Alise, disappearing with him into a room, leaving the door ajar. Curious, Akou tried to focus on her beads, but the quiet murmur of their voices drew her attention. She moved closer to the room, her heart beating faster with each step. Akou couldn't hear the words, but the tone was gentle and serious. Soon the door opened, and Azuka came out, his eyes meeting Akou's with slight surprise. Before Akou could retreat, Azuka stood beside her, smiling softly. From his pocket, he pulled out some shiny coins and placed them in Akou's small hand. "These are for you, Akou. Just a little gift," he whispered. "But let's keep my visits between us, okay?" Akou felt the cold coins in her palm and looked up at Azuka, nodding silently. The coins glittered, but they felt heavy with unspoken words. When Madame Alise came out and patted Akou's shoulder, her smile was broad, but her eyes reminded Akou of her promise. As Azuka left, Akou sat there, the coins still in her hand, feeling the weight of the secret grow. She wondered why secrets needed to be kept with gifts, why whispers required silence paid in shiny coins. That night, as she hid the coins under her pillow, Akou felt the first sting of something she couldn't quite understand. Was it guilt, confusion, or perhaps the heavy cloak of adult concerns draped over her young shoulders? The pattern repeated as Azuka's visits continued. He always brought something for Akou, a new dress, for instance, a pair of shoes or a few coins. Every time he reminded her to keep their meetings secret. One day, as Akou admired a beautiful necklace Azuka had given her, Alise approached her and said, "Remember, Akou, this is our little secret. There's no need to tell anyone, especially not your father." Akou nodded again, feeling the weight of the secret grow heavier. She wanted to trust Alise and Azuka, but couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Still, she remained silent, hoping her loyalty would be rewarded and that everything would turn out fine in the end. As days passed, Akou noticed a change in the rhythm of their home. Madame Alise began bringing more visitors to the house. At first, it was only Azuka, but soon other men came, each different, like the many fabrics in the shop. Some were tall and spoke with loud, resonant voices, while others were quiet, their smiles concealed as they hurried inside. Each visit left Akou with a new memory, a shiny coin, a small toy, or a scented soap. These gifts accumulated in her little treasure box, each reminding her of the visitors and the secret she had to keep. One evening, as the golden sun set on the horizon, Madame Alise sat next to Akou. Her voice was gentle but serious. "My friends, they are very special, Akou. It is important that they feel welcome and that their visits remain between us." Akou nodded, understanding the importance of her role in keeping the house's secrets. Although she felt uneasy about the strange pattern unfolding, the house, once filled with the laughter of her games, now murmured with hushed voices and fleeting shadows. With each new memory, Akou felt an increasing sense of responsibility. She knew these gifts were not just presents, but silent agreements, bonds of secrecy that connected her to Madame Alise and her mysterious guests. Yet, lying in bed each night, Akou couldn't help but wonder about the stories behind these memories. What silent burdens did they bring into her simple, sunny world? As she grew older, Akou began to learn more. As Akou grew older, she began to learn more about the world around her. She saw how Alise managed her life and relationships and gradually began to follow in her stepmother's footsteps. One bright morning at the market, while Akou was helping Madame Alise arrange a new batch of vibrant fabrics, her eyes met those of Madou. Madou was a young man with a kind smile who sold fruits on the other side of the square. His laughter was like music, and his kindness towards everyone made him very well liked in the village. As days passed, Akou enjoyed their small conversations. Madou would bring her a juicy mango or a fragrant orange during his breaks. His visits to their stall became the highlights of her days, and soon, Akou felt her heart beat faster every time she saw him. One afternoon, Madhu timidly asked Akou if he could visit her at home. Remembering how Madame Alise managed her visitors, Akou hesitated at first, but the innocence of her feelings and the joy the idea of spending more time with Madhu brought her swept away her doubts. "Yes, Madhu, you can come and we will have fun," she accepted, smiling more broadly than she had in months. The first time Madhu came to her house, the home felt different, filled with laughter and shared secrets about dreams and favourite things rather than the heavy whispers of Madame Alice's guests. Akou showed Madhu her collection of souvenirs, explaining that they were gifts from Madame Alice's friends, making him promise to keep this between them. From there, Akou took Madhu to her room, and they spent happy moments together. As their meetings became more frequent, Akou, influenced by the model she saw with Madame Alise, began to believe that this was how relationships should be, hidden and discreet, but thrilling. Madhu, happy to be close to Akou, didn't question this discretion, enchanted by her smiles and the quiet moments they shared away from the bustling market. But with each visit, as Akou fell more and more in love, she unconsciously sank deeper into this pattern. Akou became increasingly entangled in the web of secrets that enveloped the house, blurring the lines between innocent love and the darker patterns she had learned from Madame Alise. As Akou's relationship with Madhu developed, she found herself more and more influenced by Alice's ways. One evening, as they closed the shop, Alice decided to talk to Akou. "Akou, come here," Alice said, gesturing for her to sit down. "I've noticed that you and Madhu have become quite close." "Yes, Madame Alise, I like him a lot," Akou replied, smiling. Alice looked at her with a serious expression. "It's good to have someone special, but you are young, Akou. You should enjoy your youth and not settle down too quickly. Life is full of experiences, so don't get too attached too soon." Akou listened carefully. "What do you mean, Madame Alise?" Alice leaned in and said, "Don't put all your trust in one person. It's good to have options. See other men besides Madhu. That way, you'll know what you really want and make the most of your life." Akou was surprised but also intrigued by Alice's advice. "Do you really think that's a good idea?" she asked. "Yes, my dear," Alice assured her. "Trust me, enjoy your youth, meet different people and live your life. You'll be happier for it." Akou took Alice's advice to heart. She started seeing different men, just as Alice had suggested. One day she would go out with a tall man, the next day with a short one, and another day with a large man, or a thin one. Each man brought something different to her life, and Akou enjoyed the attention and variety. She became well known in the village for her beauty and charm. Many men admired her, and Akou delighted in this admiration. She felt free and independent, just like Alice. One evening, as Akou prepared to meet another man, Alice smiled at her and said, "You see, Akou, you're living your best life now." Akou nodded, feeling a sense of satisfaction. She believed she was making the most of her youth, just as Alice had advised. The village gossiped about Akou, but she paid no attention. She was living for herself, enjoying every moment and exploring the possibilities before her. As Akou continued to see different men, rumours quickly spread throughout the village. People started gossiping about her many relationships, and soon Akou became well known for her beauty and numerous admirers. "Have you heard about Akou?" a woman whispered to her friend at the market. "She's always with a different man." "Yes, I've seen her with the tall one and the short one." "I wonder what Madame Alise thinks of all this," her friend replied, shaking her head. The gossip reached Madame Alise, but she remained unfazed. When people questioned her about Akou's behaviour, she always gave the same response. "Akou is living her best life," she would say with a smile. "She is young and free. Let her enjoy her youth." One day, a group of village elders approached Alice at her shop. "Madame Alise," one of them began, "we are worried about Akou. She is young and should be more cautious. Alice looked at them calmly and replied, Akou is an adult. She makes her own choices. She deserves to live her life and explore her options. We should support her, not judge her. The elders left, murmuring among themselves, but Alice remained firm. She believed in her advice and was proud of Akou for embracing her independence. Akou, on her part, noticed the whispers and stares but chose to ignore them. She felt encouraged by Alice's support and continued to live her life as she saw fit. She enjoyed the company of different men, each bringing something unique to her world. One evening, as Akou and Alice sat together, Akou said, People talk about me, Madame Alise. They gossip and judge. Alice gently patted her hand. Let them talk, Akou. You are living your life your way. That's what matters. Be true to yourself and don't let others' opinions bring you down. Akou nodded, feeling reassured. She knew that as long as she had Alice's support, she could face whatever gossip the village might bring. The rumours might never stop, but Akou was determined to live her life fully, just as Alice had advised her. One sunny morning, Akou's father decided to visit her unexpectedly. He missed his daughter and wanted to see how she was doing. As he approached the house, he saw Akou running out, clutching her stomach. She looked pale and sickly. Suddenly, she bent over and vomited. Akou, my dear, what's wrong? Her father asked, rushing to her side with a face full of concern. Before Akou could respond, Madame Alise came out of the house. Oh, it's nothing serious, Alice said quickly. Akou has had a little fever these past few days, but don't worry, I'm taking good care of her. Akou's father looked at his daughter, worry etched on his face. Are you sure, Alice? She looks very ill. Yes, Alice replied, smiling reassuringly. She just needs some rest. I'll make sure she gets better. Satisfied with Alice's explanation but still worried, Akou's father stayed for a while before leaving, promising to return soon. Once he was gone, Alice turned to Akou with a serious expression. Akou, come inside, Alice said firmly. They went into the house and Alice had Akou sit down. Tell me the truth, Akou. Have you missed your period? Akou lowered her eyes, tears welling up. Yes, Madame Alise. I haven't had it for 2 months. Alice's face tightened. She quickly checked Akou and confirmed her suspicions. Akou, you are pregnant, she said softly. Akou's eyes widened with fear. What? How can this be? I don't know who the father is, Madame Alise. I've been with so many men. Alice sighed deeply, realizing the seriousness of the situation. We need to think about what we're going to do next. This is serious, Akou. If your father finds out, there will be big problems. Akou nodded, tears streaming down her face. She felt overwhelmed and scared, uncertain of what the future held. Alice took her hand, trying to offer some comfort. We will find a solution together, Akou, Alice said. But for now, we must keep this a secret. We can't let anyone know until we decide what to do. Akou nodded again, trusting Alice to guide her through this difficult time. She knew their secret was now heavier than ever, and that the days ahead would be challenging, terrified of what her father would do if he discovered the pregnancy. After discussing with Alice, they decided the only option was to terminate the pregnancy. Alice went to see a local healer and obtained a medicine supposed to end the pregnancy. Take this and everything will be fine, Alice said, handing her the medicine. Desperate and frightened, Akou took the medicine as Alice instructed. That night, she experienced severe stomach pains and bled heavily. She thought the medicine had worked, and she and Alice hoped their problem was solved. But over time, Akou's belly continued to grow. The medicine hadn't worked, and the pregnancy continued. Akou's anxiety grew along with her belly. Akou, we need to find another plan, Alice said, worry etched on her face. People are starting to notice. Indeed, the villagers were beginning to talk. They saw Akou's belly rounding and started whispering among themselves. Have you seen Akou? One woman asked her friend. Her belly is growing. Do you think she's... It sure looks like it, the friend replied. But who could be the father? She's been with so many men. The gossip spread quickly, and soon the whole village knew. Akou and Alice could no longer keep the secret. They had to face the reality of the situation. One day, as Akou walked through the market, an old woman stopped her. "Akou, my dear, is it true? Are you pregnant?" Akou felt her face flush with shame. She nodded slightly, not knowing what to say. The woman shook her head and walked away, murmuring to others. On the way back home, Akou and Alice sat together to try to figure out what to do next. "We can't hide this anymore," Alice said. "The whole village knows. We need to find a solution before your father finds out." Akou nodded, feeling a deep sense of dread. She knew the truth would soon come out, and she had no idea how to handle it. The failed plan had only made things worse, and now they were out of options. The weight of their secret had become unbearable. Desperate to find a solution, Akou decided to visit all the men she had been with, hoping that one of them would take responsibility for the pregnancy. She started with Madhu, the handsome young man she had once loved deeply. "Madhu, I need to talk to you," Akou said, her voice trembling as she stood before him. "What is it?" Madhu asked, looking concerned. "I'm pregnant, and I think you might be the father," she said, hoping he would take responsibility. Madhu's face paled. "No, Akou, it can't be me. We were careful. You must be mistaken," he said, stepping away. Heartbroken and desperate, Akou went to the next man and the one after that, but each one denied being the father. "It's not mine," they all said, leaving Akou feeling even more desperate with each refusal. As Akou moved from one man to another, the news spread quickly through the village. People whispered and gossiped, pointing at her when she passed by. The rumors eventually reached her father's ears, and he decided to confront her. One evening, Akou's father arrived at Alice's house unexpectedly. He found Akou sitting outside, her eyes swollen from crying. "Akou, I need to talk to you," he said, his voice stern and filled with concern. Akou looked up, her heart pounding. "Yes, Papa?" "I've heard rumors. Are you pregnant?" he asked, his eyes searching for the truth in hers. Akou nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, Papa." "Who is the father?" he demanded, his voice rising with anger. Akou sobbed uncontrollably. "I don't know, Papa. I've been with many men, and none of them will admit to being the father." Her father's face turned red with fury. "How could you let this happen, Akou? I trusted Alice to take care of you." At that moment, Alice came out of the house. "What's going on here?" she asked, trying to stay calm. "Akou is pregnant, and she doesn't know who the father is," her father said angrily. "This is your fault, Alice. I trusted you to look after her." Alice tried to defend herself. "I did my best. Akou is an adult and makes her own decisions." "You encouraged her to see other men," her father shouted. "You betrayed her, and now look at the mess we're in." Akou's father was devastated and angry. He felt betrayed by Alice and deeply disappointed in Akou. He knew the situation could no longer be hidden and that the consequences would be severe for everyone. Akou's father, furious and heartbroken, confronted Alice with all the anger and disappointment he had held in for so long. "Alice," he began, his voice trembling with rage, "I trusted you to take care of Akou, but instead, you led her down this path. I had suspected your betrayal for a long time, but I gave you the benefit of the doubt. Now I see I was wrong." Alice tried to speak, but Akou's father cut her off. "I can't forgive you for what you've done. I am divorcing you, Alice. You must leave this village and never return." Alice's face fell. She knew there was no point in arguing. She had lost everything. With her head bowed in shame, she packed her belongings and left the village, never to return. Akou's father took over Alice's shop, ensuring that it would continue to provide for Akou and himself. He then brought Akou back to their own village, hoping to protect her from the gossip and judgments of others. Life was not easy for Akou after returning to her father's village. Her pregnancy was no longer a secret, and she had to face the consequences of her actions. She gave birth to a beautiful baby, but the circumstances of the child's conception weighed heavily on her. Akou lived in shame, constantly reminded of her past mistakes. The villagers whispered about her, and she felt the judgmental stares wherever she went. Despite her father's support, Akou struggled to find peace and happiness. She spent her days helping her father with the shop, raising her child, and reflecting on the choices she had made. The carefree life she once had was gone, replaced by a constant sense of regret and the heavy burden of responsibility. Meanwhile, Alice completely vanished from their lives. She settled in a distant village, far from the shame and the life she had once known. She never returned, and her name gradually faded from the villagers' memories. In the end, Akou learned a hard lesson about the consequences of her actions. Consequences of her actions and the importance of making wise choices. She vowed to raise her child with the values she had learned too late, hoping to offer them a better life and a future free from the mistakes of the past. So, dear viewers, who do you think was to blame? Was it Akou's father, who knew Alice's nature before entrusting his only daughter to her? Or was it Alice herself, for not warning Akou because she was doing the same things and didn't want to reveal her secrets? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories like this one. Goodbye.